Alright, hey guys. Looking at the prompt for this week, with two pilots getting stuck or having a problem completing their flight because of the weather and having issues with talking to the air traffic control, my first take on the situation would be definitely to have a good pre-flight just before you get into the G1000, because there is a lot of things you can do with the G1000. But I think the most important part is to have a really good, solid pre-flight, to go over the weather and see what the potential problems could be. In this situation, it seems like something really bad would happen, something like a thunderstorm or some really strong turbulence where a lot of planes are clogging up the ATC frequency and they can't get like a weather briefing or they can't get a reroute. So I would definitely say, even to just avoid this situation entirely and not have to use the G1000, even though there are so many different things you can do, I would definitely say just to go through the weather briefing as thoroughly as possible. I mean, there are two pilots in this situation, so I would expect them to be able to get a pretty good weather briefing and to really know what the weather should be doing before they get in this situation. But with that being said, sometimes the weather does change out of nowhere. Sometimes clouds form, sometimes you get a thunderstorm and you just weren't prepared for it. So in that case, using the G1000, the first thing I would look at would be the temperature on the PFD. This happened to me once and it really helped me out. I was doing an IFR flight, and this is during my IFR training, and we got vectored through an icing airmet. I have no idea why air traffic control did that, but they threw us right through an icing airmet and we started to pick up light icing. And we were able to figure that out primarily based on the temperature gauge, and we were in clouds and we saw that the temperature was at something like 29 degrees. And obviously that's below freezing. We're in visible moisture, so we knew we were going to pick up the icing, and we looked out on the wings and we did see a very small layer of icing form on the wings, and we let them know and they helped us out with that. Another thing that you can use that I think is even more beneficial would be the winds information on the PFD. That can really help you see if you get a really strong wind shift from maybe like a 20-30 knot tailwind to a 20-30 knot headwind. If it's a really long flight, something like 400 miles, that could potentially be a problem with your fuel, and you might actually have to divert. You might run out of fuel. And then likewise, if you get a headwind shifting to a tailwind, maybe you don't have to make a stop if you had a stop plans. Maybe your range is going to be increased because you do have a really strong sustained tailwind. So that's one thing I would have done in this case, is immediately look at the temperature and the winds and see what's happening with that. And that can also indicate other things, potentially like wind shear or just a wind shift in general. If you have the weather data link set up in the G1000, which I don't, I wish I did because it's awesome. You can use so many things on that. You can immediately look to see if you're in like a SIGMET or an AirMet, if you have to get out of that. You can look and see where potential precipitation is. You can get away from rain, thunderstorms, from some of those clouds. I think that's a really, really helpful way to just stay away from the really nasty weather, and to really help yourself out while ATC is rerouting like all the IFR traffic. Because as we know, the VFR pilots, in those situations, you kind of get screwed and you're kind of on your own to figure it out while they're trying to reroute all the IFR traffic around some of the bad weather and to get them set up on their approaches or just on their route. So if I was in this situation and I had the weather data link, I would probably immediately look and see for the SIGMETs and AirMETs to see if there's like a convection SIGMET or something. If I know there's going to be a thunderstorm near me and I need to get away from the area, get those 20 miles away really quickly. And the same thing with the winds and stuff. It does also show you the winds aloft, and you can see if you're going to have like a really strong headwind for the rest of your flight or a really strong tailwind for the rest of your flight. So that'll really help you just in your planning and to kind of figure out what you have to do while you're in that situation. And then another feature that we all have, of course, is the FMS knob and the FMS on the MFD. What I think is really helpful, especially where I live in Southern California, there's so many airports and they all have ATISs or AWOS. And what we can do is we can just go over on the FMS to the nearest section. And at least for me, there's usually around 10 airports near me or so. So I can see the ATIS information for those airports. I can get the frequency right away and just plug in the ATIS frequency on the second radio or on the standby radio. And I can listen and see what they're reporting on the ground in case I have to divert. And I can see, am I going to have to make a really hard landing with a really strong, like gusting crosswind, or is it not really that big of a deal? I can kind of divert anywhere I need to, and I'll be safe doing whatever I have to do. But overall, the G1000 has so many good features to help if you're in this situation. So I think you're always prepared and you're always ready for anything that's going to really be thrown at you.